A lot of times on this show, we often talk about how we can do better. We talk about stories of kids who have been neglected and forgotten, subjected to abuse so cruel it proves monsters are real. But today, you will see what happens after the abuse, how one former foster child from Camden, New Jersey is choosing to do better. Marshall Roberts, she was taken from her family when she was all of 7 years old, along with her brother Sean, who was about 3 or 4 at the time. Now she's 22. She is a senior at Temple University in Philadelphia, and she is joining me on Capitol Hill. She's actually one of about 15 in a special program called the Foster Youth Internship. And what it is it's kids once in the system, once in the foster system, helping to create policy to improve life for young people currently in the system. And one of those kids could possibly be her brother. She has not seen him in 12 years. She is Marshall Roberts, joining me live from Washington. Marshall, welcome. And we're going to get to your brother here in just a second because I want to hopefully help you. But first to your story. I know you were shuffled from family to family. You talk about being a victim of sex abuse. You talk about your brother being a victim of emotional abuse. Can you just share as much as you can about that experience?
Absolutely. I was very young when it started out, and so I didn't really know what was right or what was wrong. And it began happening so much that I didn't realize that it was as negative as it was. And so I would expect it to happen. And it wasn't until I was taken away from that situation and placed with my adoptive mother that I realized that there was better for me. And I realized that people who love you don't treat you that way.
I hate to hear that you expected it to happen. I hate to read about how you would go home to hopefully stop it from happening to your brother. And I'm just curious, when you talk about your experience and talking to other former foster kids, do you think that experience is the exception or the norm, Marshall?
You know, unfortunately, I think it's the norm in the foster care system. Countless amounts of times you can read reports that show that there is neglect going on in foster homes. And it's crazy to me because it seems that these are the reasons we're being ripped away from our biological families. And so we're placed with people half of the time we don't know. And we suffer from the same abuse, and sometimes it's the first time that people have experienced such abuse in foster care. It's really a travesty.
It is, and we report on stories like this when they're happening or right after they've happened, and I often wonder, could you have picked up the phone and called someone for help? Did you know you had that power?
I didn't know I had that power, and honestly, I didn't know that I should have done that. It wasn't, like I said, until I was taken out of that situation and placed in a stable environment that I realized that everything that was going on was wrong. And so I had counseling, and I talked to my mother, and I would talk to my grandmother, and they would explain to me that those kinds of things aren't supposed to happen to children, especially young children. And so that was what helped me kind of come through it and encourage myself to become an advocate for youth. Just knowing that I had a support system there, I knew it was wrong after the fact. And so I think that the important thing is to instill in children that it's wrong when it's happening.
You survived the system. You talk about how you finally found stability with an adoptive mother, you know, but during that whole process, Marshall, you're separated from your little brother, who you are looking for now 12 years later. I'm going to ask you about that here in just a minute, but I want to talk about why you're there on Capitol Hill. You're part of this amazing internship. It's a highly coveted position so that, you know, young people like yourself can help really shape public policy. And I want you to just rattle off 1, 2 changes you would make to the system if you were talking to Congress.
Well, as a part of our internship, we write policy reports, and so my report is on establishing a federal database for all the services that are provided for youth that are in the system. We do have many services. We have counseling services and mentor services, and I think a lot of the times youth don't know that these exist. I didn't know they existed when I was being abused. And so I think that for other youth coming up after me, they need to know that these are out there. They need to know that they can pick up a phone and call for help. They need to know. And so if we establish a federal database with all of this information cohesively established into one place, I think it'll be better suited for the youth that need it, that thrive off of these services that are provided to us.
Marshall, let's talk about your brother here. The first thing I said to my team, I said, well, let's get his picture because, you know, if she hasn't seen him in 12 years, let's, you know, throw his picture up on CNN and hopefully someone can recognize him. Alas, you do not have a single photo. Help us help you find him.
I wish I had a picture of him. I've always wished I had a picture of him. Right now, the way I picture him is 3 or 4 years old. And so I was 9, 10, 11 years old wishing I had a picture of my brother. But I do have faith that I'll be able to find him without that. I do think that there are resources out there available to me that I have now been familiarized being on Capitol Hill with. And so I think that I can find him, and I'm sure it'll be a struggle, and I'm sure it won't happen overnight, but I have faith that I'll be able to find him. If my mother didn't teach me anything, she taught me to have faith.
Oh, Marshall, I hope you find him. Let us know when you do.
Thank
Marshall
you.
Roberts, best of luck.